Our first guest this week is Mr. Paul Sorensen. He's the Vice President of Product Development with Tribal Rides International Incorporated, XNDA is a stock symbol. Paul, welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot, Don. It's great to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, that type of thing.
Well, my background's a little bit varied. It includes an undergraduate in computer science from Dartmouth, a PhD in geography with a focus on spatial logistics from UC Santa Barbara, and then a master's in urban planning with a focus on transportation planning and policy from UCLA. And then all of that somehow comes together really nicely in terms of what we're trying to do at Tribal Rides. I've also, between those stints, worked as a software developer, designer, a product manager, and a project manager. So that brings together a nice bit of experience that we can apply to what we're doing here at Tribal Rides.
Well, obviously, you're eminently qualified. Tell us what the focus of your job, Vice President of Product Development.
Well, as a fairly small company right now at Tribal Rides, that ends up involving a number of different activities, but first and foremost is a focus on the product that we're building and really trying to nail out the requirements that we want to meet for the needs of the drivers and riders who will be using our system, and understanding how to prioritize those over time for what we need to get in the first release and then what will come in releases to follow. It also involves working with the drivers who will be our clients and understanding their needs more clearly. And we certainly expect that once we've done the initial release, the drivers will provide us with really valuable insights on how to refine or alter what our priorities are for features as we roll forward with future releases.
Well, let's talk about that, Paul. Where are you with the current application? Give me a quick overview.
So we already have an application that was released about a year ago that will let a rider order a ride, let a driver provide that ride and charge for it. What we are really trying to do with the release that we're working on right now is shift to a focus where drivers can establish basically like a preferred clientele of riders who they work with on a basis, sort of a repeating basis for rides over and over again, and then let the riders be able to interact with the drivers that they're connected with and schedule rides in advance. So we are focusing on the various features that are going to help to make that possible with this next release.
Well, let's speak about that. When do you expect approximately when the next app release is going to happen?
So we're targeting it for the June timeframe. We're working hard on it right now to make sure we meet that timeline. And then we're anticipating that we would be focusing initially on a lot of drivers and riders in the Southern California market, which is, as you would imagine, a very large market. We're already connected with a number of drivers in the area who are anticipating what we're going to provide and ready to start using it and help us out.
Of course, app releases and app updates always have improvements. What kind of improvements and changes do we see from the previous release?
So for this release, as I mentioned, really we are focusing on what are the additional features that would let drivers connect with clients for repeat business over time. And then what are the sort of complementary functions on the rider side that would let them request scheduled rides with the drivers that they're connected with over time. So, some of that includes functions by which the driver can sort of send an invite to a rider to get connected on the platform. And then it would there are tools that would let the rider request a ride at some future time from, one or more drivers that they have a relationship with. And that would include, not just the, where from and where to, but also the day and then the time that they need that, and whether it's a, sort of a preferred pickup time or a preferred drop-off time that they're trying to key off of. And then a driver finally would be able to receive a request for a ride and then provide the price that they would charge for it, and also what time they would be able to do it, which could be the exact time that the rider requested, or perhaps the rider says, hey, I could do that a half hour later. Would that be all right with you? And so then finally a rider would receive the response from the driver and could, indicate whether the timing and the price are acceptable, and if so, choose to go ahead and schedule that ride.
I shared I'll call it a challenging experience with the other shared ride applications with your CEO in a previous interview. How is your system different from the other shared ride applications?
So I think maybe the first key difference is more or less what we've just been describing, whereas many of the other shared ride applications are focused on real-time dispatch, where a rider says, hey, I need a ride right now, who can come get me? And there's really no continuity over time between the riders and drivers that they might get for any particular ride. We are instead, focusing on developing that repeat business and helping a driver build up a clientele that will provide them with repeat business going forward, and then focusing more on the scheduling rides in advance rather than the real-time dispatch of, I need a ride right now. So it's kind of an adjacent market, and it's really a market that's largely untapped. So we're excited to be able to try to meet the needs within that market. I think philosophically, we sort of view ourselves a little bit differently, really with a main focus on the drivers being our main customers as opposed to the riders being our main customer. So we're really trying to provide a tool set that helps drivers to build up their businesses of repeat clientele over time. And, just as an example of that, the Tribal Rides platform will not be specifying the prices that a driver would charge, but rather each driver can indicate what their own price is. They can specify their per mile rate or their per minute rate or a minimum charge, and we can take all of that information and sort of compute the charge that driver would apply to a rider for a particular trip. And because of that and some other related features, really it's sort of an unambiguous call that the driver would be an independent contractor, and so we would sort of avoid some of the uncertainty around that particular issue. And then in return, the drivers really do have a lot of flexibility to basically build their business however they want to build it within our platform.
It seems like you're really addressing the desires and the needs of the drivers and the desires and the needs of the riders. It's kind of a double benefit.
Well, yeah, we're certainly working towards doing that. I mean, from the driver perspective, one of the key benefits is that, unlike with many of the ride-sharing platforms, they'll be able to effectively, indicate what their own price would be. And even over time, they're not just going to be locked into sort of one price structure. They could, for example, decide they want to charge a higher price if it's near the end of their shift and they want to, make it worth their while to stay on a little longer or not. Or they might choose to reduce their rates if they're, maybe helping to, work with a local senior center. And they want to just offer a little price discount because they feel good about doing that. So they can really vary their rates by circumstance in a way that meets their own needs. They'll also have much lower fees on the Tribal Ride platform than many experience in other places. And then certainly over time, we're going to be providing a range of analytic tools where we sort of look at demand patterns and help them determine maybe where and when they want to provide rides in ways to boost their business as well. From the rider perspective, cost should be lower overall, in part because we're not charging as high a fees to the drivers, so that some of those savings can be passed along to the riders as well. There won't be surge pricing, other than to whatever extent a driver chooses to apply on their own. We won't be applying any surge pricing, so they won't deal with that, which is a pretty common frustration for riders. But really, maybe one of the most important benefits is when a rider is working with a driver repeatedly over time, there gets to be a nice trusted relationship between the rider and the driver. And so maybe at that point, the rider starts feeling comfortable having the driver go pick up their kids after school for something that was going to be logistically challenging for, one of the parents to provide that. And you might not be willing to send a driver you don't know to do that, but if you've worked with a driver 5 or 10 times and you have a rapport and a relationship, it opens the possibility of additional services that might be based on that trust, or maybe it's, you have an aging parent and you want to send the driver to take them to a medical visit that you're going to have a hard time doing. So, there are some other, I think, important benefits from the rider's perspective about having one or more drivers that they really build trust in over time.
The company's Tribal Rides International, stock symbol XNDA. Paul, great description of your job title, great description of your business model. Fabulous interview. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Don. I really appreciate it, and hope to talk again sometime soon.